when I started, the personalness is gone now with technology. Like literally, if I wrote an offer, I'd write an offer on carbon paper. It had like the purchase agreement was 8-page. I still have it in my office. It was carbon. You kept one, you gave one to your client, and you took the other one to the other agent's office. So I'd walk in the office, hey, Steve, here's an offer or whatever. That's gone away. Even the escrow companies, I primarily use Fidelity because I like the people. But when I would close an escrow, I'd grab a 12-pack of Corona and go sit in my escrow officers, and we'd have a beer. You know, it was just more relationship based. Now it's a little more transactional based, I feel.
Yeah.
So the relationship stuff has gone away big time, I think, agent to agent.
Yeah.
Not client-wise. But guys like you are building the relationship stuff back.
Hey, and welcome back to the Pursuit of Property podcast. We are sitting here today with a big player in the Fresno industry that we had the opportunity of chatting with over at Corbin Claypool's event at his home. What was that, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah. And so we'd like to introduce a friend of ours, Aaron Vazquez with Adanalian Vasquez. He's the broker owner and has tons of experience both on the agent resale side and the investing side. And we'd just love to hear
and property management.
And property management.
He does it all.
Yeah. Unfortunately. No, I shouldn't say that. It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Well, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So you mentioned it just briefly while we were chatting before. You got in the business back in...
I got my license in 2000.
Wow.
And officially jumped in like full-time 2001, 2002.
Really? What were you doing before real estate?
I worked for a pharmaceutical company. So long story short, I worked for Eli Lilly, ran the distribution center for the West Coast, and was married, got divorced, had my son, and they wanted me to move across the country, and his mom wouldn't let him take me, so I started in real estate. I always dabbled in it because my dad was a realtor all through high school when I was in high school and stuff, so I understood the business, so it was kind of like a natural progression, I would say.
Are you from Fresno originally?
I'm from Fresno.
Where'd you go?
Went
for high
to,
school?
High school went to Bullard. I went to private school, kindergarten through 8th grade, and then I convinced my parents not to send me Memorial just because of the stupidity of I don't want to wear a uniform anymore.
You're a better man than me. I tell everybody I fought my parents desperately to go to Bullard, and I did not succeed.
No avail.
If you ask my parents, because I have a brother, you know, we went different paths. I went the good path. He chose a different path, but he's on the right path now. They would say they'd never do it again. They would have made us go to Memorial.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. And so your dad was selling real estate.
My dad was selling real estate. He worked for the county of Fresno for like 30 years. He ran he was a fleet superintendent and got tired of the politics. Took real estate class at City College at night and then took a month vacation, sold real estate and went back and gave his notice. And he did it he's still doing it. He's at the office still got his license and still doing stuff here and there.
And so growing up, did you... Well, right, because you said you started in the pharmaceutical industry and then you started coming back towards the family business. Was there any, like, I know typically sometimes if like a parent has a family business, sometimes some of the kids, like they have an aversion, like they don't want to touch it. They don't want to go in the family business. They want to go a completely different direction. Was that how it was for you before coming back full circle?
No, so I was actually going to Fresno State at the time. I got lucky by getting the job for the pharmaceutical company. I was just the right place, right time, finishing my degree. And when... I was going to get my license, and my dad's like, you can't come to work here unless you finish college. And I was like, you don't need a college degree to be in real estate. He's like, well, that's my requirement. And I was like, okay. It wasn't something that I was going to stop doing, but until I finished my degree, he wouldn't let me come to work for him. So all through high school and stuff, though, like, I mean, I knew all the realtors. I probably did thousands of repairs on homes, you know, fixing a fence post or this or that, carbon monoxide detectors, strapping water heaters. I did a ton of that work during my high school days, so I kind of knew it. And then you guys probably don't know, and I was looking for it. I was going to try to bring it. The MLS used to be a book.
I would have loved to have seen
I've got one somewhere.
It's
It's about this big, and you flip through by zip code, and it's got a black and white picture. I have one somewhere. I'll find it. And I used to look through the book all the time, just, you know, seeing what was there or whatever. And then I mean, he probably would have gotten in trouble over this at the time, but I knew his login, so I'd be on the computer, at night, just checking out houses, looking at those houses on Van Ness, thinking, man, it'd be nice to live there. And just kind of always had a interest in it, obviously because my dad did it. And my mom actually went to work. She retired and went to work in real estate too for probably 12, 15 years.
Can you tell us a little bit? I mean, you started in the 2000s. You were looking at it before then. Is this even the same industry as when you started?
No, not at all. Because when I started, the personalness is gone now with technology. Like literally, if I wrote an offer, I'd write an offer on carbon paper. It had like the purchase agreement was 8-page. I still have it in my office. It was carbon. You kept one, you gave one to your client, and you took the other one to the other agent's office. So I'd walk in the office, hey, Steve, here's an offer or whatever. That's gone away. Even the escrow companies, I primarily use Fidelity because I like the people. But when I would close an escrow, I'd grab a 12-pack of Corona and go sit in my escrow officers, and we'd have a beer. It was just more relationship based. Now it's a little more transactional based, I feel.
Yeah.
So the relationship stuff has gone away big time, I think, agent to agent.
Yeah.
Not client-wise. But guys like you are building the relationship stuff back, quite honestly.
Well, we're trying our best, and it, even just talking with you, I could tell we were very aligned, and just you didn't really know me. Maybe we're friends on Facebook, but no personal connection. And
Correct.
I bump into you at Corbin's, and next thing we know, we have a 40-minute conversation about how to get started in investing and building a portfolio.
Right.
I mean, in the early 2000s, what was it like getting started?
It was tough. Like I worked probably 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. I wore a suit every single day.
Really?
Yeah, because that was just how it was then. Like if you walked in and I'm wearing tennis shoes and jeans right now, they would have looked at you like, what are you doing? If you weren't wearing slacks and a polo shirt or something. And I saw my dad and his partner and other people were successful. So it was like, okay, they know what they're doing. I'm going to learn. And it makes a difference. Back then, it made a difference when you walked into a client's office or walked up to somebody and you're wearing a suit. They look, okay, this guy's professional. Let me talk with him or whatever. But there was no, I don't know if the word camaraderie would be right to use, but I mean, in the office, there was no help. It was like, hey, how did you get this listing or how'd you do that? None of that. Now, if you had a contract signed and everything, they'd help you with some of that stuff, but there was no sharing of the information like you guys do nowadays.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. It was like whatever was working for you was like a golden secret. I'm not telling anybody, which is crazy because there's so much business for everybody.
That's exactly what we were talking about before we started recording, was that it's always coming from that abundance mindset that there's enough business out there for everybody. You just got to put in the work to go and find the business, but the business is there.
Oh, 100%.
And like what you're saying, I remember I started in 2018, and even now it's kind of different than when I started.
Right.
But in 2018, it was like trainings. Here's how you find clients. Here's what you do to do this. I mean, it was like, I remember getting in the business and being like, wow, I've got a lot of help. And I think it's even easier now. But you're saying when you started, it was like nobody would share. I mean, where did that come from? Just like everybody was scared you'd steal their business?
I think it was just a different mindset back then. I mean, you got to figure too, I mean, houses were $70,000, $80,000, so the commissions are different. I mean, you're trying to make a living. I think it was just a different mindset back then than it is now. I mean, I look at it like if I can help somebody, I'm going to help them. I've always went with do what's right, And so if it means helping somebody, even if it's not somebody in your office, I've written an offer for an agent at another company on my own property because she was out of town on vacation and these people wanted it. I'm like, not a big deal. I'll do it. I'll DocuSign it, send it to you. You sign it. I'll get it to your clients. And it like tripped her out. But I'm doing my client a disservice if I don't, service these people that way. So I think everybody wins if you're helping, quite honestly.
Well, how does this pivot into you? I mean, at the start, like you mentioned you're a realtor, you own property, and you run property management. What did that, journey look like going from having no help at the start, except maybe parents that were in the business and kind of seeing it growing up? How do you get into all these different things?
So it started with my dad. My dad and I, we have a real close relationship. Like as a kid, we worked on cars. He was in cars, so it got me into cars. So we're big into cars. We have a bunch of old cars. And so I would just bounce stuff off of him. And then it came to the point where he was like, we should start investing in real estate. And then we just started looking for deals, kind of like you guys do it now. Really, you could find the deal off the MLS back in the day. I mean, you could find something good. Or one of the first houses he bought, which I wish he would have kept, he bought a house in Morro Bay as an investment for like $35,000. And he did it. We were fixing the guy's car that owned it. And the guy carried the note at like 6% interest, and he didn't want a payment over so much. We had that house for like 4 years, and nobody ever used it. Obviously, I was younger, so if I had it now, it'd be over there.
Yeah.
And then he sold it, and it was like one of his biggest regrets. Like, I should have never sold that. So he's always been of the mindset, I'm not selling anything. I don't need to sell it. I'm not selling it, whether it be the real estate or cars we bought. And so we just started picking up deals here and there. And I'm the type of person, like, if I see something, I'm going to figure out a way. And that's how we got into commercial properties is we rented a commercial property for years, which is retarded because we're in real estate. And we rented and rented. I mean, you think about it, we rented, and it was like, we owned our office, but we rented a commercial warehouse, basically a storage for cars. And I saw in the business journal one day that this company went out of business, and they were right around the corner. And I'm like, that's the perfect building for us. I went by that thing 20 times till I finally caught the owner there. And he was like, I already sold it. I got it to these people, but I kept on talking with him and ended up buying it. And that's how we went from basically homes to commercial properties. Another time we bought a complex. We knew somebody, and this lady was going to lose it, and she just wanted to get some money out of it. And the owner was like, I don't want to be paid off. I want to carry the note, kind of like you guys do or whatever. So it basically boils down to networking, like you guys are doing. Just talking with people. People know you're in the business. Stuff comes your way. But I've learned that you can't take every deal. You have clientele, so you have to give it to, your clients or whatever. But you be selective on what you pick up,
right?
What makes sense.
And where does the property management piece fall into all of that? As you guys are starting to keep some of these deals that keep popping up, do you guys just kind of start that in-house property management out of a need, or was that going on before you guys stared picking up units?
No,
how does that piece fit in?
The property management actually arose out of my dad's partner needed something to do. And we were in real estate. We figured, it'd be smart to do a property management. And he was kind of retired. And so we were like, that'd be a perfect thing. We know he's a good guy. It went from there. And then one day he passed away all of a sudden. We had another guy come in. He was handling it. And then he left and ended up kind of screwing us. So I took it over and then been doing it ever since.
Wow.
I have somebody who works for me.
Right, of course.
Because I think you're dumb if you think you can just handle everything yourself.
Well, talk to us about that. I mean, I can't even imagine running a brokerage, having all these properties, also doing property management. I mean, how do you learn to delegate and hire and bring in the right people? That's a skill set of its own outside of real estate.
Yeah. So I think over the years, we've kind of connected with quite a few people in construction industry and such like that. So you kind of weed out who's good at what, who's not good. If we're going to have something painted, we use this guy. If we're going to have some plumbing, you kind of weed through over the years all the people. And I feel like you build yourself a core group. Mm-hmm. And so, if you got something that's going on, we're going to send this guy out, And you try new people out too. I mean, you'll find some people are of the mindset, oh, it's old, I'm just going to replace it. But then you got the old school guys who's like, well, this thing will go another 10 years if you throw $200 and fix this part. Well, let's do it. Let's fix it then,
Yeah, it's back to that relationships thing that you're saying. You're building that, like, we always call it a team. Mm-hmm. They may not be like working for you, but they're like the group, your escrow officer, your insurance person, your attorney, right. And they kind of, you bounce ideas off them and they bounce ideas off you.
Yeah, and honestly, you build a personal relationship with some of these people. I mean, there's guys we've loaned money to, they left the company to go out on their own. And so they're like, hey, we're gonna go out on our own. Is there any way you could, we could borrow some money? And my dad's super, I always tell people they take his kindness for weakness because he's always willing to help people. And so he'll be like, hey, this guy wants to borrow $15,000. What do you think? I think he's a good guy. Well, do it. I trust you, Mm-hmm. And so a guy will start his tree service. So then, hey, we use that guy because we know what kind of guy it is. And don't get me wrong, you get burned here and there. But for the most part, I think everybody's been pretty good. And so that's kind of how we built the people that we utilize. It's funny, property management, I don't manage any of our own properties.
Really?
That's outside the property management company, because that gives my dad something to do. He's kind of semi-retired, so he takes care of our properties somewhat, unless I get pissed off at something or whatever, because I have a different thought process, I'm like, why let this thing sit? Let's rent it, and so like our commercial property, it's a junkyard for him and my brother. I mean, we have a bunch of car store, but they have so much junk there, and I'm like, I bought 3 C trains. I'm like, okay, everything's going from there into there, and this building's got to be rented like in 6-8 months.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, let's do it.
Dude, what I keep picking up on is like, I feel like you guys have that old school approach and mentality to real estate that I think is, I mean, obviously the industry has made a lot of growth and improvement. Like you said, like people are very now more willing to educate and share information. But I feel like the piece, if any, that is still missing is some of this like old school mentality, old school approach, to not only the way you're treating people, but the way you're running your business. How do you feel like that fits in now and in kind of the current era of real estate for you guys and how you operate?
I think that's gone away from a lot of people, honestly. Like when I first started, a handshake meant something. If I told you guys, hey, I'll get that repair done, you could walk away and know it would get done. I mean, I'll have agents tell me, oh yeah, they're going to do it. And then it doesn't get, I never said that. Well, you looked me right in my face and said your people were going to do it. For me, my word still means something. So if I'm in a transaction, I say I'll get it taken care of. It may cost me money. My client may not pay for it. But for me, my word means something still. Mm-hmm. So if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Or my client tells me I'm going to do this. Okay, you got to get it done, and they don't do it. I already communicated to the other people it's getting done. Then I'm going to take care of it. Then it's my responsibility to reach out to my client and say, hey, you got to pay for this or I eat it.
Yeah.
But you got to do what you're going to say you're going to do. And that part has gone away. I think there's a lot of people, as we had talking before, that just have no ethics. They just don't. I mean, if it's not written in paper, they'll look at you. And there's some experienced agents that have been in the business longer than I have that I've dealt with that have looked me in the face, okay, yeah, we'll get it taken care of. And then the deal goes and, I never said that. And I'm like, bullshit. I talk to you right in your face. You're full of shit. And I'll tell them that too. That's kind of how
that's what I like about you is you'll say it how it is.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I get myself in trouble with the MLS all the time. Every time, I mean, I get calls because I post shit on Facebook because I see stuff and it pisses me off. And I'm like, well, I know I'm not dumb enough to name them by name, but if you're halfway educated, you can know who I'm talking about.
If you can pick up what I'm saying by referencing the behavior, I think that has to do more with the person that did the behavior, not on you for saying it.
100%.
Exactly.
And they're cool. Like, I mean, I got called last week because I put something about commission payment that came into the office for one of my agents. And I'm like, when you try to hide stuff, that's when I feel like, you're no good. Don't hide it. Be honest. If you're going to do it, do it. Why hide behind it? Why hide behind the paper?
It's interesting you say this. Our podcast is really designed towards people that are getting into the industry, right? We're very young. We got in young. It sounds like you got in fairly young.
Right.
There's a very big misconception that our business has a lot of lying and stealing and cheating to make stuff happen. Like you see it, and I'm speaking right now more specifically to the investing world. Mm-hmm. They feel as if you have to lie to a seller to get them to give you the right price, or you got to lie to an end buyer if you're going to wholesale it to get this price because they think somehow this is never going to get caught up to them. I think my experience has always been the more transparent I am, the easier it has become to do more business.
Oh, 100%. Just be honest.
It's what you're saying. It's relationships. If I call Aaron and Aaron has, 3 or 4 deals with me in the past that have all kind of gone well, I've always done what I said I was going to do. When I call Aaron on a phone call and I say, I got 123 Main Street, I'm looking to sell you for $150,000. What do you say? If Aaron says yes, I don't have to worry about, is Aaron going to sign and follow through and close? There's a relationship there,
right?
That you do what you say you're going to do, and you expect me to do what I say I'm going to do.
Right, 100%. I agree with you 100% on that.
I mean, what What is that? What happens when you see those people that don't follow that model? I mean, you've been around longer than us. I mean, do they exit the business? Are they able to keep going?
So you can. I always tell people in real estate, I'm this, I'm that. The numbers don't lie. You can look up anybody's, other than they don't publish commercial stuff. So when I hear people say, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm like, okay, well, the numbers don't lie. But I can tell you, I could list 10 people I know right now that are not in the business that used to do exactly what you said. They just weren't honest. And they got the reputation where nobody wanted to write an offer on their property. Or there was an agent that used to have to put the listing in another agent's name because he had such a bad reputation, people wouldn't even want to go show it. And so, that's exactly what happens. They end up exiting the business because nobody wants to deal with them.
And what's happened to your business with your model? Because obviously you said you're very direct. You've definitely gotten in a few people's faces about, hey, you said you were going to do it.
Right.
What's the reception been to that? I mean, you're still around. You're still doing a lot of business.
I think people, I know for a fact my clients appreciate what I do, but I think it also on the other end that people know like, hey, you can't play around if you're going to be doing a deal with me. If you say you're going to do something, do it, and expect the same from me. If I say I'm going to do it, or if I tell you I'm going to send you an offer, or, hey, this is what we're looking for, just be honest, And I think that's the part that people can't take sometimes. Sometimes I might be a little too brash in my honesty, but that's just who I am.
Talking about your business and your business model right now, how many agents do you guys have in the office? Obviously, you're broker owner of your family brokerage. Talk about just all the things that are going on right now. From the investment piece you're doing, are you trying to stack more rentals? From the property management, are you trying to grow it? What's kind of that flow look like?
Yeah, so from a brokerage standpoint, I've probably cut it in half, quite honestly, of the people that I have. I'm not set up for new agents, really. One, I don't have the time to really put into training people. I have people that have tried to join, and I'm honest. I'm like, look, I'm not going to have you come here just to collect money off of you. I don't have any desk fees. I don't have any monthly fees, but I'm not going to try to have you come, sell your first property, take 40% of your commission. I'm just not that guy to do that. So I'm more for experienced agents that's looking for somewhere to go. I'm not actively recruiting people. I haven't. If anything, I've probably lost a quarter of the people I had 2 years ago, but I'm okay with that. I have a nice group of core people. I mean, I think 6 or 7 of the people in my office have their broker's license, and they're not going anywhere else. Property management standpoint, yes, I'm looking to grow that. Anytime you have turnover, you lose. I recently lost a guy, and so I've lost some properties. But I'm trying to grow that because I kind of enjoy that, dealing with the owners right now and doing that aspect of it, to where I'm just a flat fee, though. I've kind of did a little research, and it feels like everybody's charging 8 to 10% of the rental income. I'm 125 flat, 150 for certain commercial properties, just to provide a service. And I'm really looking to grow that more right now. On the investment side, where we've gone more into apartment complexes. I think what's important for young guys like you to do is to network with like high net worth individuals, because they can open doors for you that the average person can't. So like right now, my dad and I are in an apartment investment. It's 250 units. They raised $20 million private, and then they finance the rest, and you have ownership. But that was through a relationship I built with an individual. He put me in contact with those people, and it was that relationship I had. It's a good story. He's an older gentleman, sold his company, I think, for 90, 100 million. But you wouldn't know he's worth, the guy wears a Timex watch. He's got the stuff, but you would never know it. And he came to me one day and wanted to sell his house because he's on the road a lot and he wanted his wife to be in a gated community. And I said, okay. And I was on vacation in Cabo with my wife now. And he called me and he's like, hey, what am I going to ask for my house? And I said, well, this much. Okay. So he calls me like an hour later. I got a buyer. And I said, okay, well, what does he want to give you? No, he wants to give me X amount of dollars. I said, no, go back and tell him, I guarantee you can get this. So he calls me. He's like, well, when are you coming back into town? I was like, well, I'll be in town on Friday. It was like Wednesday. Okay, we agreed on a price. And I'm like, well, what price? And he goes, 1.36. I said, they would have paid. He goes, they're a good family or whatever. And I was like, okay, wife just got done with cancer and they'll be good for the house. Fine. So I show up Friday and owners are there, the buyers. I just basically circle the paperwork. Boom. Take care of the repairs, need some repairs. And when it comes time for the commission, I'm like, I just charge him 2% total. I did everything. Drop off his closing statement. He pulls out a checkbook and he writes me a check for 4% of the sale price. I said, well, I can't take that. Well, no, don't you guys normally get 6%? I said, no, it's negotiable. I said, but I literally didn't have to do any market. I didn't have to do anything, just the paperwork. I said, I don't feel comfortable. Well, my wife's going to be pissed if I don't give you this money. Well, I said, well, you let her be pissed. I'm not taking it. I mean, it was a $50,000 check. I could have just deposited it. And he was like, his wife called me that night and she's like, I can't believe you wouldn't take the check. Why? It's not about money. For me, it's never been about money. I said, I did the right thing. And so that right there, I think it showed them what type of person I was. Because I think 6 out of 10 agents, honestly, would have been like, okay, cool. The money.
More than 6 out of 10.
Yeah, would have been like, oh, shit,
9 out of 10.
9, yeah.
And so it was, to me, it's not right. I was hesitant on the 2% because I'm like, yeah, I took care of a bunch of stuff, did a bunch of stuff, but they also bought a property. But I think that right there showed them what kind of individual I was. So when other opportunities have arose for investments or whatever, he'll drop my name to these people, and then they'll give me a call and set up a meeting and say, okay, so and so John said you're a good guy. Let's talk. This is what we're doing. And so that's opened some doors for me is networking that way.
It sounds like you've kind of moved into this syndication model where it frees up your time.
Yes.
You're putting in all this hard work over the decades that you and your dad have been doing this. You've accumulated a little investment piece.
Right.
You put that money in there, and then each month that business kind of manages it, pays it out.
Right. The only negative is you don't get any return for 2 years. You put your money in. You can't 1031. Like we sold our office building on Shaw and Fruit. So the government takes their big chunk. You give it to them, and within 2 years, you start getting a return. But in the long haul, it's better.
What's it like being in a syndication like that? I don't think we've talked to anybody who's actually invested into a syndication on the podcast.
It's honestly, it's so much better because you kind of sit back and just collect the check. Really,
Yeah.
You do. I mean,
Real mailbox money.
You don't have to worry about anybody calling you for repairs. I mean, most of them are newer, but you just kind of sit back. Quite honestly, I'm waiting to find out when they're going to do the next one because then we're going to get rid of property A, B, C, and D. We'll take the hit on capital gains, but we'll put it in there. And in the long run, it's better. And they've never sold anything. None of the properties that they've done, they've sold.
And your dad's older.
Yeah.
Right? He's
70. He's 75.
So he's in a different stage of life. Mm-hmm. He's in that kind of protect mindset. Right. Where are you at? Are all of your investments with your dad? I invest with my dad, so we've talked about this, but what's that like? Maybe he's in this defensive kind of, write it out the smoothest, easiest way. Are you in a more aggressive spot, or have you transitioned as well?
Yeah, no, so that's where we disagree on. And I understand it because we had this conversation not too long ago, a couple years back, and I was like, man, we need to finance, a bunch of them are paid off. I'm like, we need to pull money out. No, and he's like, here's the problem. At my age, if I lost anything, I can't make it up. And at your age, you still got time to make it up. But my dad's whole thought process is, his deal is he doesn't want to lose anything so that when he dies, he knows, hey, me, my brother, my sister, we have something. I could give two shits. I'm like, go ahead and go out broke. Travel the world, do what you got to do. And if you die and you have $2 in the bank account, or your own bank account or whatever, I'll be happy. So that's the difference in mindset. I would want him to be, I shouldn't say I want him to be broke, but I want him to enjoy life, go do whatever you want to do, and not worry about us. And that's the mindset. The difference between us is he's realizing now, hey, you were right. A couple of years ago, we should have done this. Let's do it now.
Yeah.
But I mean, we could have capitalized so much better when the rates were at the 3%. I mean, it would have been smart.
It would have been sick.
Yeah, exactly.
They would have had a better asset with that money out at 3% than just the asset free and clear.
Right. Even if you're just loaning the money out, and he realizes that now, but he was of the mindset like, and I don't know how old your dad is.
Yeah, he's about to be 60.
Okay, they look at it like, man, if I go broke, I don't have time to make it back up. Yeah. Whereas you guys are probably like me, like, if I went broke, I got plenty of time. I'm not going broke. That's my mind. I'm not going to go broke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're in a business where there's an opportunity to decide your fate to a degree.
Right.
I mean, if one of us were to pass away or get cancer. There's a couple things outside of our control, but within reason, we can kind of control how much money we are going to make.
100%. Yeah.
Do you attribute a lot of the core values in the way you do business and the way you treat people? Were you raised that way from your dad and from your parents? What do you attribute that to?
Yeah. So I always say I had a very strict upbringing. Like kids nowadays, I'm sorry, but they're just a bunch of pussies. Really. I mean,
looking at you.
No,
Kate.
I'm not looking at you guys. No. Because I have a son your guys' age, which makes me feel even older or whatever. But yeah, I mean, my dad used to tell me this about my grandfather. My grandfather, he was just a hardworking guy. And when he died, he told my dad, like, I don't have anything to leave you, but I got two things. I got your name and your work ethic. Those will get you through life. And so growing up, my dad worked 8 to 5, and then he came home and worked on cars on the side because that's what he loved to do. And so I just learned a work ethic from him and my mom. I mean, my mom, I joke about it now. My mom worked a full-time job, came home, and we still had dinner at 5:30. We knew, okay, dinner was at 5:30. And I think that the work ethic has gone away a lot from people, especially in this business. I mean, I see it. I still see it. People in my office. You get a commission check, they get $8,000-$9,000 and then disappear like a fart in the wind. And then that check's gone and they're like, oh, what am I going to do?
They're back looking for a listing.
They're back looking for a listing or looking for a buyer. But yeah, I think you have to. This business, I always treated it as a job. Like, I don't have to be in the office today. I have nothing really going on, but I don't want to sit at home and watch TV. That's just not me. I'm not wired that way. I mean, if I leave, my wife, she thinks it's funny. Like, if I leave the house at 7, I'm like, shit, I'm already late. I don't have anywhere to be. Nobody's at the office. But that's the mindset I've always had is just the harder you work, the better off it's going to be. Now, I also had to learn to work smarter, not harder.
Mm-hmm. We've had that same argument with ourselves. I mean, we were here this morning at 7 looking at multifamily out of state. We talked to you about that.
Right.
And we have for a long time, we've been huge proponents. I think our number one viewed YouTube video is talking about scheduling and being disciplined on being there, right? Showing up. It's interesting you say that because it is that same balance of you have to work hard. No matter what, you do have to work hard. Then you got to figure out how do you work smart with the same amount of discipline as when you were working hard.
Right.
If you can solve more problems but still work the same amount, that's how you really get to that next level. It's not figure out how to run this small business and then kick back.
Yeah, something I want to ask you guys, which I've always felt, this goes against what, like, obviously I've learned a lot from my dad or whatever, but he's always been a big proponent of, I want to own property where I can physically go and see it. You guys have stuff out of state.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that a little bit, because that interests me. What made you do it?
So when we bought our properties, and we've talked about them openly, I encourage you to go listen to the YouTubes. Because
I've seen them.
Yeah, we've shared the good, the bad, and the ugly, and there's been a lot of bad and ugly.
Right.
Yeah.
But when we were 21 and 20, we couldn't afford to buy anything here in town. We had relative success, among our peers, but not to the level where we could really invest and make cash flow. And so we went to out of state. Jason had some property there. We had a property manager there that actually had a personal relationship with us here in Fresno. We bought each property for $30,000 and they rented for $800, $900 a month.
Yeah.
And
No brainer.
Well, at the time, Kate had a truck and I had a truck. And our payments on our trucks were like $650 and
$550, $600.
Yeah. And our mortgages were like $245.
$300.
And Jason had this saying that was always like, don't get a car until your cash flow pays for it. And I really wanted a new car. And so we went and bought those. We learned a lot. Our biggest loss was around $25,000, but we just got them appraised. They're all worth right around $100,000 each, and we're 26 and 25. There was no other way for us to learn how to do it. And the other added benefit, not to ramble, but the other added benefit was neither of us are handy. I mean, we're both hard workers, but neither of us really know how to work on a house.
Right.
And there was something nice about being forced to pay somebody and learn that if I ever want to get to that next level, I have to be willing to let go of certain tasks that I am not the right person for.
Right.
And I think those were
not only learn how to let go, but learn how to manage, learn how to stay on top of, learn how to pivot and shift if it's the wrong person doing that for you.
See, that's a valuable lesson, because I remember, 15, 18 years ago, we had some family members that wanted to get into buying a house and flipping it and do that. And it's like, okay, hire the stuff to get out. Oh, no, we're going to do the work, okay. Well, by the time it's all said and done,
you lose money.
They made a little bit of money, but the amount of time that they invested in that was just ridiculous. And you look at the end of the day, it's like, okay, you invested this much time for this much profit.
Here's your hourly.
You could have basically done the same for this much profit, because you got it sold quicker. You've gotten that, and people don't realize that. My wife, I'm handy. I could do anything, and she's like, why won't you paint the room? It's not worth my time to sit there and paint that back room that we want to turn into. I'm not going to do it. I hate it. Number one. It's gonna, I'm gonna come home every day after work and spend a couple hours and drip shit everywhere. I can pay somebody $400 or $500 to come in. They're in and out in a day, and I don't have any stress. And then you're not bitching at me about when's it gonna be done, or you got this on the floor. So much better.
I'm gonna open up here. I'm gonna be vulnerable. We're remodeling the house. I haven't put $1 into my own home in the 2 years I've been there. We're finally doing it. My wife, she was like, "We're doing it." So I met with our contractor that does our flips. He was like, "Hey, I'm going to hook you up, get the subs, kind of help you guys manage it," because I don't really handle the rehab side. He called me and was like, "Hey, if you're really trying to save $1, why don't you remove the baseboards yourself?" And I volunteered to do it, and I've done one room, and the flooring guy is coming next week. And I told my wife yesterday, I said, I bet the flooring guy would have charged me like $200 to remove this. And instead I'm sitting here denting the drywall trying to get this out because I'm not handy.
Right.
But I had that arrogance in me that like, I could save a few bucks doing that. And it looks horrible. I'm horrible at this.
No, it's patience. You got to have patience. That's the thing. But you're right. But it's your home too. There's something to be said about, hey, I did that. Or, it's my house. I did that. An investment is one thing, but the home you live in, it kind of speaks volumes of what you do. It's like, for me, like I'm involved in like the car scene. I have a bunch of old cars, so is my dad. And so if I go to a painter's place and it's shambles, or he's got a car and it looks like crap, I'm not going to think about it. I've been to realtors' homes and thinking, but this is your business and this is how you live? It's crazy.
Don't come to my house right now.
Well, and trust me,
give it a month and it'll look a lot better.
I did a huge remodel in the middle of COVID, so I understand. I had a 18-foot hole in the back of my house with blue tarps because COVID screwed stuff up, and that was our Christmas. That's what it was. So, but it's your house.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about you took the baseboards off, or you've done some little things. That's your house. You can. Who cares if you didn't have the drywall? You did it.
Well, and hopefully the 5 and a 5.
Oh, it'll cover it up. Yeah, you probably got the whole 3 or something.
I got the 3 right now.
Yeah, they ain't gonna see anything.
Well, tell us this then. What was it for you guys in buying investments here in town? You bought at a different time. Prices were a little different than now. Mm-hmm. But what was the draw to stay in Fresno? You knew about out of state.
Yeah, I knew it's home, so the areas. Some of the properties we bought, we had family that needed a place to live, so they lived there. Neighborhoods. It's just, my dad always had the mindset of, I want to be able to physically go and see whatever I buy. I want to be able to drive by and kind of take a look. And so that's why, and at that time, really it was affordable. It's great. It's becoming unaffordable. So, I sold a house last year that I thought the house was a pile of shit. And I sold that for more than what I bought my house. Now, my house needed some work when I bought it, but I'm looking at what people are paying now and what we used to pay, and it's like, man, it was affordable. For $200,000, you could have a nice, 2,000 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. You might be able to get a pool in a great neighborhood. Yeah. I tell people right now, everybody's worried about the interest rate. I'm like, I went back and looked like about 6-8 months ago from the time I started. I dealt with foreclosures. I dealt with the banks and sold the homes for them and what people paid. And that $100,000 house is $225,000, $250,000 now. That $200,000 house is $500,000. That $300,000 home is $650,000 and $700,000. If you want to buy a house now, you got to not worry about the rate and buy it, because in another 2-3 years you're not going to be able to afford it. No, you're just not. That's the reality of Fresno.
Yeah,
you can't.
You've talked a lot about your relationship with your dad and also your dad's perception of, you mentioned it a little bit, of him being in the mindset of wanting to leave something for you and your siblings, right? How does that look like now that you have kids? I know you've mentioned your son. How does that relationship now look like with you and your kids and your perception of, maybe how you want to run business or, obviously grow and raise them? What does that relationship look like?
So my son's in the construction field right now, and he's got like ultimate goal to own his own company. So right now I'm looking probably 5-7 years out to try to finance him to start that company. That's what I would want to do for him. But my dad always told me, he's been successful in real estate, but when I graduated college, I graduated with no debt. He paid for my college. And so when my son growing up, I did the same thing. I said, when you graduate college, you're going to start off debt-free. You have no car payment, no school, no credit cards, no nothing. And he got a decent job, but his whole goal is I want to own my own construction company. So I'm like, okay, he's got a great job. You need to put 5 to 7 years in to learn. For me to give to him, that's what I would like to do. Finance that startup, whatever direction he's going in that's probably where I'll head. That's my ultimate goal.
Well, and your son is going into building his own business. The people listening to this are trying to build their own business. Mm-hmm. As if you were talking to your son or even a stranger who's looking at doing this in our current market and in the new day and age. If you had to give them the advice of what to do as they're doing their new business, they're starting something with a legacy in mind, what's that ultimate thing they have to keep at the top of their head as they're going through the day-to-day functions?
You have to start at the bottom. If you don't, you have to start at the bottom. That way, when you're at the top, the people at the bottom will respect you. If you start at the bottom and you're telling people to do stuff, if you can go out there and show them, hey, this is where I started, I can do it, they'll gain a whole lot more respect for you. So that's my ultimate goal, and that's what I did for him, knowing what he wanted to do. He worked for some friends of mine that own big construction companies in town, but at the bottom, like as a laborer, like coming home dirty and just, it also teaches you I want to do better. I don't want to be that guy. There's nothing wrong with being that guy. But so his ultimate goal now is that you got to start at the bottom and be humble and never be afraid to learn. Or ask as well. It's kind of like when you go out to date a girl, you don't have her number. You see this girl, you want to get her number. If you don't ask, you got nothing. You don't have anything to begin with. If you ask her and you get it, great. If she turns you down, you never had it to begin with, so you don't lose anything. That's always been the way I looked at it. If you don't ask, you're not going to find out. It could be something good, it could be something bad. But even if you get shot down for it, you didn't lose anything because you didn't have it to begin with.
I like the way of looking at that. And I think more people need to adopt that way of thinking. They're too scared to put it out there and ask or, put their neck out for something. And like you said, what's the worst that happens?
Right. You ask the guy.
You're in the same spot.
Right. Let me be your agent. Well, I got somebody. Hey, you know what? I'm looking for something. Great. You didn't lose anything. If anything, you gain. And that's the way I've always looked at it.
Aaron, I'm an optimist. I know we've talked about over the course of this podcast, we've given some examples of having bad apples in our industry, people who don't treat people right, people who don't have that confidence behind their word that they give you. For a lot of people who are listening, I know it's like that is a quality that I feel like just from meeting you and talking to you twice now in person that I feel drawn to, right? That way of doing business, that way that we try to do day in and day out for somebody listening, whether they're new, whether they're experienced, whether they have some deals under their belt. How can people reach out to you? How can they find you if they have a property they want managed in any aspect that they want to get involved to reach out to you? What's the best way to do that?
They can call me on my cell phone. Every one of my clients, whether it be property management, everybody's got my personal cell phone. They can call me on my cell phone and get a hold of me. And if they need help with something, I'm always available.
What's your number to reach at?
559-284-4412. And then if you want my email is old school. It's C21Aaron, Aaron, at hotmail.com. I still use Hotmail.
Boom, diggity. There it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's really cool to have you in and hear your perspective. It aligns a lot with ours, and we didn't know that fully bringing you in.
Right.
But it's good to kind of have a conversation, and I think a lot of people that listen need to hear somebody like you that shoots it straight. There's no dilly-dallying away.
Right.
You just got to tell them how it is, and if they don't do it, it's their own fault.
Yeah, and I hold all my agents accountable too. I mean, it starts from the top. So if I have this mindset of how I want business done, I expect everybody else to do the same thing. And quite honestly, I mean, we have an older group of people in our office, and so I believe they have the same mindset too. You guys obviously do, talking with you. So it's good.
Bit of an old soul from us, and we've adopted that from our mentors.
Yeah, nice.
We're definitely not the originators of our own ideas.
Neither am I, so.
That's it. Well, Aaron, thanks for coming on the podcast. We will absolutely need to have you come back on.
Sure.
And in the meantime, thank you for your time. And
no, thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
That's it. We will see you guys next week.